With millions of babies born every year, and given the fact that we all began as babies, we thought that we should bring you a list of things you just may not know about them. Babies are basically little superhumans, and it's due time that we give them the recognition these adorable little creatures deserve. Here, we present to you a list of remarkable and adorable facts about babies. Number 19. Plethora of bones. Babies have nearly 50% more bones than adults, 300 to be exact. Some of these bones begin to fuse together as babies grow up, lowering the number of individual bones in their bodies to 206. If they didn't have more bones, they'd never even make their way out of the womb. They have several bones in their skull that, when being pushed out at birth, overlap and squeeze together so they can actually make their exit. Number 18. Incredible strength. A reflex known as the palmar grasp is observed in babies when basically any object brushes against their palm. They instinctively grasp whatever is handed to them, whether it be a finger, toy, or anything else a baby might get its tiny hands on. The grasp is strong enough to support their body weight, which is pretty incredible given their chunky little physiques. It's thought that this is a leftover trait from times when babies would have had to cling to their mothers like baby monkeys. Number 17. Super tasters. Did you know that babies have way more taste buds than adults? The average baby has 3 times as many, making them extra sensitive to different foods they're given. Babies tend to prefer sweeter tasting foods as they grow accustomed to the sweet taste of their mother's milk. Researchers believe that babies begin to develop different preferences or tastes while they're still in the womb, as their mothers eat and drink different things throughout their pregnancy. Young children also prefer sweeter foods, as they need the sugars contained inside for help with growing. On the other hand, kids tend to shy away from vegetables because of their bitter taste, as it's an evolutionary trait passed down to avoid bitter things, due to bitterness being associated with various poisons. Number 16. Brilliant little buggers. Babies can learn and understand the meanings of some words before they're even able to speak. A study was conducted where parents uttered nouns to their children while showing them multiple pictures of different things, and the babies looked at the corresponding picture to go along with the noun. Some of the babies in the study were as young as 6 months old at the time, showing that their brain power is kind of intense. Other studies have shown that babies as young as 24 hours old can distinguish between theirs and their parents' language and foreign languages. They observe the prosody patterns and rhythm of language, which is why they're able to differentiate between their language and others. They also cry with their parents' accents, reflecting characteristics of their mother's native tongue in their cry patterns. Number 15. No kneecaps. Did you know that babies are born without kneecaps, but instead have a series of cartilages that resemble kneecaps that form around 6 months old? That's why you can see a lot of babies dragging themselves around using only their arms at first instead of getting around on all fours. Babies can actually crawl as soon as they're born, and at times do so to find their mother's chest for feeding. Good thing we all end up developing them eventually, otherwise we'd all be dragging ourselves around, and we'd travel much slower. Number 14. Inability to cry. If you've ever been around a newborn, you'd assume that those awful shrieks and howls they emit are cries. While that is their way of communicating, babies, in fact, cannot produce tears until they are around 3 weeks old. The tear ducts in a baby aren't fully developed until then, although they do naturally create enough moisture to keep their eyes from drying out. Number 13. Weird in water. If you ever throw a baby into the water, which we can't say we recommend, before he or she is 6 months old, you might be surprised that they naturally have the ability to swim, or something kind of like it. The diving reflex gives babies the ability to seal off their windpipe to avoid swallowing water into their lungs, instead diverting the fluid to their stomachs. Until around 6 months of age, babies' larynxes sit high, but after that, they descend to make speech possible. The same reflex gives babies the ability to swallow and breathe at the same time, making them actually really bizarre. Number 12. Flawless fingertips. Way back in the 1970s, scientists found that if a baby or child somehow loses their fingertip, chances are they can regrow it, as long as the loss doesn't take the entire nail and the wound isn't stitched shut. The fingertip may grow back and make a full recovery. Dr. Christopher Allen, a surgeon at Harborview Medical Center in Seattle, had a 7-year-old girl come in who had lost part of her fingertip in a bike spoke. Instead of attempting reattachment, Allen and his colleagues left the finger to do its own thing, and 8 weeks later, the girl came back into his office with a fully regrown, fully functioning appendage. Number 11. Fading fingerprints. Speaking of fingers, did you know that the fingerprints of babies and children tend to fade or disappear from surfaces after touching them? According to an experiment done with children 17 and under, the prints of the children quickly faded and vanished from vials after they handled them. Scientists believe the cause is the amount of fatty acids in a child's fingertip versus adults. Adults have less fatty acids in their fingers, thus their prints stick around, whereas children's fade heavily and sometimes completely disappear. Number 10. Beautiful baldies. Some babies seem to be born with long, lovely, luscious locks, but a lot of times it doesn't stick around. Most babies experience a period of hair loss in the first few months after birth, but don't worry parents, it's totally normal. It's called telogen effluvium, and a lot of babies go through it, and almost every time the hair comes back and continues growing for the rest of their lives. Some babies are born with stick, straight hair that gradually turns curly over time, and some experience a total change in hair color. You never know what might happen to a baby's hair in the first while after birth, so just appreciate what you have while you can. Number 9. Self-awareness. Do you ever wonder if your baby recognizes him or herself when looking into a mirror? A simple test may help you find the answer. Drawing a dot on a baby's forehead and sticking them in front of a mirror is an excellent way to gauge a child's self-awareness, as the self-aware baby will try to rub the dot from their forehead. The baby who hasn't yet developed this skill will probably just touch the mirror and not realize that the dot is on their head. Number 8. Changing eyes. Parents. If you're super excited or disappointed in the color of your newborn baby's eyes, don't worry. They can and probably will change. The melanin in a baby's eyes hasn't yet developed, and as it does, over time, baby's eyes can shift or change colors completely. Usually, the eye color of a child is pretty close to set by 6 months old. However, some children's eyes continue to change all the way up to 3 years old. Number 7. All the reflexes. Evolution lends babies lots of reflexes, and by lots, we mean around 70. Long before they gain the ability to walk, parents will notice that if they stand a baby up and support their weight, they appear to walk. That's because babies are born with a stepping reflex and with the inherent knowledge of how walking works. They just can't do it yet because they're not developed enough. The startle reflex makes a baby seem terrified of every little thing that makes a noise or crosses their field of vision, but it's just their natural response to loud noises. A baby's most sensitive touch receptors are located around or inside of their mouths, which is why they naturally gravitate toward putting anything they can get their hands on inside their little mouth. Number 6. Birthmarks. These markings are probably more common on tiny humans than one might think. Around 80% of babies are born with birthmarks, with stork bites, the pale pink markings on a baby's face or back of their neck. Birthmarks can come in all shapes, sizes, and colors though, and can be found on any part of their bodies, and they occur when little itty-bitty blood vessels are dilated during birth. Sometimes they take weeks to show up on a newborn baby's skin, and other times they can go away completely after a few years. Number 5. An ear for music. The University of Helsinki conducted research that produced some pretty neat results. Babies who have heard certain songs while in the womb can continue to recognize the music for months after birth. The songs the baby's parents listened to while he or she was in the womb may even help settle the little one down, as it is comforting to hear things they're familiar with. Number 4. Super cute little things. Have you ever looked at a baby and just wanted to squeeze and pinch its little cheeks? Researchers have found that the smell of a newborn baby's head may have something to do with the sensation. The scent of the newborn apparently activates the same reward circuits in the brains of women that food and addictive substances do. Parents are evolutionarily drawn to their children and the cuteness of little things so that they care for them and give them the attention needed for survival. Number 3. All-seeing, all-noticing. Alison Gopnik, a Berkeley professor of psychology, wrote a book titled The Philosophical Baby. In the book, she described babies as having a lantern consciousness versus the attention spotlight seen in adults. This means that babies, unlike adults, focus on a little bit of everything at once. Adults tend to focus their attention on one single important thing, while babies just notice everything going on around them. Most adults think that children just can't stay focused or pay attention to everything, but this is where they're wrong. Children are often just noticing everything going on around them, all at once. Number 2. Communication skills. Before a baby can speak, they typically will be able to communicate a lot of what they want or need through the use of their body parts. They wave, gesture, clap, point, and use various other ways to communicate something they are dying to tell you. Some studies show that babies who learn how to communicate physically, and the more they do so, may be better off using their verbal communication skills in the future. Number 1. Adorable smiles. Although you may notice some newborn babies with a big grin on their face, Typically, the smile isn't the real, genuine article. Babies can typically smile even inside the womb, and they are known as reflex smiles. Usually, the first real smiles a baby gives come between 1.5 and 3 months old, and they come on for a variety of reasons. Usually, the first real smiles a baby gives come between 1.5 and 3 months old, and they come on for a variety of reasons. Music or hearing a parent's voice is usually the first cause of a real smile in a baby, and over time they begin to react with adorable little grins to things they see. They also start to laugh around 3 to 4 months old and laugh roughly 300 times a day. If you're anything like us, those cute little giggles are enough to make your day.